Welcome back, everybody. This episode was it was good. I mean, good in a drama kind of way, I guess. Anyways, I was gonna say it was still buck wild, but it wasn't as buck wild as like the last episode. It was still buck wild in its own way. Anyways, so the episode opens with so they did a time jump 10 years into the future, and you have the older actresses, and everybody was sad to see the young Rhaenyra go away, and other people are like, but the older Rhaenyra, we're excited to see what she has to bring. And so many people are already happy and satisfied with the actress who's playing the older Rhaenyra. Listen, I like both of them, the younger one and the older one. Okay, they're both doing a fantastic job. Anyways, so the older Rhaenyra now giving birth to child number 3. And they've got the whole 9 yards going. Her hair is all over the place. She's sweaty. She's bloody. I know it was smelling bad up in there. No offense to anybody. And they were like, "Come on, princess, push. You gotta push," And she pushed that baby out. And they said it's another boy. And she was like, "Is he healthy?" And he was like, "Yeah, he's healthy. He's got all his fingers and toes, and he's good." She was like, "Oh, thank goodness." And then the maid comes in. The maid comes in and delivers some news that like ruins the whole mood. Like, we're all like, "Oh wow, she just delivered another baby. We're glad it was it wasn't a hard delivery like her mother's. That she's all right. That the baby's alive." And that she's holding her baby, oxytocin going through the roof. She's laughing while crying because she's happy. She's done with the pain. I'm sure she's already still in pain, but she's done with the birth. And the baby's there, and the maid comes and was like, the queen would like for the baby to be brought to her, and she was like, "Really?" And she was like, "Yeah." She was like. And the maids were like, "Listen, you don't have to do this. Just let us take the baby to her, or let somebody else do it." And she was like, "No, I'm not going to give her the satisfaction." Well, she didn't say that yet, but she was like, "No, I'm going to take it myself." And I was like, "I get it. That's your baby. But listen, I would have been like, "Later." And I would have made him take the baby. Because listen, when I'm in pain, I'm not moving for nobody. Anyways, so she gets up after just giving birth, y'all. And to even ask her to do that, like, I get it. Like, the resentment was high. And like I said, the resentment was, it was thick between them. But to make her do that, knowing that she was going to get up to bring her own child, especially after what happened to her mother, that her mother died during childbirth, like, why would you, I don't care, like, what went on between them or how much resentment was going on between them. But she was low down for that. Anyways. So she gets up and she brings her baby to Allison. And I feel like Allison was just trying to look to see if the baby had any traces of brown hair. Just so she could be like, another mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't because she wanted to see the new baby. She just wanted to see, like, did she sleep around again? Did she have a baby by her husband this time? Spoiler alert, no, she didn't. Anyways. So she gives the baby to her, shows the baby and then gives it to her dad. And then, the dad gives, Viserys gives it to Allison, gives the baby to Allison. He was like, well, I hope it wasn't, an easier delivery. And I do, like, sometimes I feel like that question is asked a little bit out of context or without, like, what's the word I want to use? Without tact, so to speak. But I honestly do think that he meant it when he asked her that question because, like I said, considering what happened to her mother and his wife, he just wanted to know, like, are you good? Like, because the last thing he needed was to lose another woman that he loved to a painful childbirth. Anyways, she was like, I think I might have cussed out the midwife, like, during the process. And he just, like, hugged her and kissed her. Because, like I said, I think he was just happy that she and the baby made it through it. And this is the third baby, so he's happy, right? And she was looking at the baby, she was looking at that head. I'm telling y'all, she was looking for that brown hair. I'm like, really? She just birthed the baby. Like, at least wait 2 or 3 months before he, sicko. Anyways, so she, was just being just nasty. Like, she was so nasty in this episode, going to Lane and talking about, keep trying. Maybe you'll get one that looks like you. And I'm like, okay, so everybody's real quick to throw it in Rhaenyra's face that she's having, extramarital affairs and that's how she's getting these babies. But what about Laner? Like, nobody's talking about, like, I mean, of course, it could probably get him put to the sword, but I mean, it takes two to tango. You know what I'm saying? Not to, like, don't get the wrong impression by what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying that they were real quick to say you're out here having babies, not by your husband. But they weren't saying, but what's wrong with the husband? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Rhaenyra was taking a lot of the slack, but still, it was also on her because she should have at least had one baby with Lena. That's what I heard a lot of people saying on the internet. Like, it was incredibly unwise of her to not just have at least one baby. But I'm no fan of arranged marriages, especially between people who are related and people who did not want to be in a relationship with, each other. Like, that's kind of messed up to ask somebody, like, oh, I know you don't like this person or love them or even find them attractive, but you need to get into a relationship with them and have a baby with them. Like, that's trauma. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not excusing her behavior anyways. But I just thought that was so disrespectful. And then for her to say, that Rhaenyra's children were plain featured, I'm like, so are they plain featured because they have brunette hair? Because you have brown hair too. So wouldn't that make you plain featured? Like, she has been saying stuff like that. Like, it's like the second time she said something, like I said, very tactless like that. That I was like, but wait a minute. That applies to you, ma'am. Like, when she said that comment, I think it was like in the second episode or the third episode, where she said something along the lines of, I've never been a fan. Oh, when she confronted Rhaenyra about, sleeping with Daemon, she was like, I'm aware of your family's practices. Like, it's disgusting. Like, and I'm like, but ma'am, you're married to a man who you've popped out 3 babies for, who is literally the product of I think his cousins, I think, or siblings, who married his cousin before you. So you offended the king. Like, child, I would have told my dad. I'd be like, first of all, say it again and watch what happened. I'm going to tell my dad. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell him that you insulted us in our family. But anyways, she got me with that plain featured comment. I was like, ma'am, shut your mouth. Anyways, those are children. So then she brings the baby back, and they were like, oh, well, what's gonna be the name? And this was the third comment that she made that was disrespectful. And so Lena was like, oh, we're gonna name him Joffrey. And not Allison, Rhaenyra looked at him like, really? Like, I think she was just more mad that he didn't give her the chance to consult her, like she said, before he just named the baby. And she gonna say, does this sound like a name for a Targaryen? And I'm like, well, put a heiress on it or something, or Ceres or something, and make it that way if that's what you're so concerned about. But anyways, I just thought that was rude. Like, it couldn't have been me. Like, you talking about my kids, that's fighting words. That's why I don't have kids. I'm sorry, because I don't know how to act. Anyways, I would be ready to fight people over my kids. And I don't know how to fight because I was raised in church all my life, so I'd probably get beat up and then put in jail. So anyways. So then they take the baby back, and she was like, you didn't think to consult me, And he was like, well, it's our children, And I'm like, really? Okay, I guess. And she was like, well, only one of us is bleeding. Well, she is literally like bleeding down the hallway. And I'm like, so nobody thought to like call help for her? Like, they really don't care about her. That's what it seems like. And they were saying this while Sir Criston Cole was standing, guard by the door. And he was looking back, and it reminded me of how he's had to live with the fact that this man literally beat the guy that he was with to death. I wouldn't want to be in any vicinity with anybody who beats somebody to death. I don't care who they are in relation to me. You beat somebody to death with your hands, I don't want to be around you. I don't want to be around you. And it's just sickening to me that Alicent would employ him. I was glad that she stopped him from, unaliving himself. Although she should have let him go. She should have either put him somewhere like, in a not leadership position, or just let him go. But anyways, and they didn't do nothing to hold him accountable for what he did. That was not fair and that was not right. But anyways, so then, the new captain of the Night Watch, Sir Harwin Strong, comes to the room. And I'm like, This has to be the most confusing situation for the kids. Like, did Rhaenyra never once think what the kids were gonna think? Like, could you imagine the conversation that they probably had? Like, her oldest boy, Jace, probably came up to her and was like, Mom, why do we not look like Dad? Or you, for that matter. Mom, why do we not have white hair like the rest of the family? Mom, why do we oddly look like the commander of the Night Watch? Mom, why does Sir Harwin always come up here and be spending time with us like he our real father? Like, I just want to know. Like, I can bet that that's what they asked her. Like, Mom, what is going on here? Something's not adding up. And then, Lena was playing his "oh yes, I'm the father" part, but I know that they were probably looking at they mama and dad, and they were like, something's not adding up here. And then she's like, Lena, Sir Harwin would like to meet Joffrey. Basically, in Tyler Perry with, Medea, and it was like the funeral, it was a stage play, and Mr. Brown was like, this is your granddaddy. Like, we can remix that song to this is your daddy, because that's basically what the situation was. She was introducing the child to her dad and the dad to the child. And I was like, this is some hot mess right here. This is some hot mess that she done dug herself into. Like, this is some hot mess. Anyways, he's holding a baby. He's holding his son, looking at her like, this is my son. This is my boy. Yeah, got another one. And she's just like, yeah, that's your boy. And I'm just like, y'all gonna get yourselves killed for real. Anyways, so then Alicent confronts Viserys, talking about look, the first one was a mistake. The third one, that was an insult. You need to do something. Like, that woman got so out of place and disrespectful. Like, it's one thing to be disrespectful to Rhaenyra, but the disrespect that she had towards Viserys was just out of line. Ain't no way I would have been dealing with that as the king. She would have either got backhanded. Something would have happened. I'm sorry. I'm not advocating for physical violence, but she wouldn't have been talking to me like that. Oh no. Not the king of. Oh no. She wouldn't have been talking to me like that. Anyways, and he's just looking the other way, literally and figuratively, talking about one time I had a white horse and it jumped the fence, and then there's a black horse that made it with it and gave birth to a brown horse. Genetics works in mysterious ways. And she's like, really? Like, she basically said, you must think I'm stupid, basically. And his response was, things happen, genetics, nature. It's a funny thing. And she was like, I can't stand you. And she leaves. And then she goes to Sir Larys Strong. I'm like, first of all, what is he still doing around here? She didn't befriended this man. She didn't been having secret meetings with him. And I'm like, this is incredibly stupid. You do realize that, right? Like, this is the same guy that once you finally got back in, you and your friend were talking and y'all straightened some stuff out, literally came and took a bomb to y'all's relationship. Talking about I'm so glad she's okay. So glad to have been wrong. Like, he didn't come to you to give you that information to help you. He came to you to give you that information to ruin your relationship with her. Like, come on, use common sense. Come on, you gotta get your wisdom up there, ma'am. I don't even know why she was still working with him, but it was stupid. I put it that way. She over here talking about is there nobody here that's on my side? Like, and he was like, such a tragedy what they're doing. Wouldn't happen if I were in charge, stuff like that. And of course, she had Sir Criston Cole to vent to, because this man was literally out here calling the princess the C word. I'm not going to repeat it on this channel because I'm not trying to get a YouTube strike. I was like, to even say that behind her back, he needs to get flogged for, okay? And then Alicent had the audacity to look at him like he was dirt for calling her that. And I'm like, but ma'am, you're over here venting to him, talking about how much you can't stand her. What did you expect? Y'all both have a common enemy in y'all's eyes, and that's Rhaenyra. Y'all like to gossip about her, talk about her. What did you expect? You're nursing this attitude from him. Then they had the whole scene with the kids. Oh my goodness. The kids, Jace basically claiming, well, not Jace. Yeah, Jace, I think it was. Or was it the youngest boy? Anyways, one of the strong boys claiming a dragon. And he was like, can I do it? Can I do it? And they're like, well, you got to learn how to control. You know, they're only going to respect you if you put your foot down. He was like, Dracarys. And then, you know, he roasted the poor little goat, and then he ate him. He was like, yeah, that's my dragon. And then they were making fun of Aemon because he didn't have a dragon. And I was like, come on, guys. Come on now. But this is kids. Like, you know, if you don't make sure that they're, you know, doing right, this is the stuff that they do. And they'll say, oh, we got one for you. And he was like, really? And they brought him a pig with some wings attached to it. And I was like, that's so mean. That is so mean. Like, y'all are the equivalent of the mean girls in school. That's mean. They were talking about some oink oink, like, be careful when you mount her, oink oink. And I was like, y'all are trifling. And he was just like, and then he tries to go and I guess like find a dragon. And I can't remember. Somebody said which dragon it was, but I can't remember. Almost got roasted like that goat, you know. And he ends up running out. And then the doggone guard brings him back to his mama. And then the mom, Allison, is talking to her daughter. I forgot what her daughter's name is. And so she was like, you know, holding this centipede. And I was like, okay, so she's into like bugs and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. And she just, the relationship that I could already see between the two of them is depressing. Like, she's looking at the centipede. She's never made contact with her mother the entire short conversation that we see. Allison is looking at her daughter like at first I thought it was because she was playing with the centipede, but then I felt like it was more because she couldn't really understand her with the, you know, the way that she talked and how she viewed the world. It looked like Allison couldn't have cared less about what that girl was saying. She was looking at her like, you know, like, and I'm just like, the Mother of the Year award goes to not you, heifer. Anyways, then she, like, and some people didn't notice, but other people did. She, like, grabs her by the arm, and she literally, like, I wouldn't say she, like, made it dramatic, like, flinch, but she kind of, like, you know, kind of, like, tensed up, and I'm like, is she hitting the girl or something? Something is going on here. Like, maybe they'll show us in the future, but clearly this is a relationship between two people that are detached from each other, and that is not good at all. But it's interrupted by the guard bringing Aemon in. And she was like, he did it again. I'm like, really? So you didn't learn from the first time, basically. Where's the common sense? Because clearly it's not with him. But anyways. And she was like, why must you do this? Must I confine you to your rooms? And he was like, they made me do it. I'm like, really? Like, this could have been a learning lesson. Like, sweetheart, if you make a mistake, don't blame somebody else. Now, you can tell me what happened and I'll hold whoever else responsible, but take accountability for what you did first. And she immediately goes, oh, it was Rhaenyra's kids, wasn't it? When her son was like the ringling, the leader of the Ringling brothers. And I was like, this heifer. Then she goes to Viserys to snitch like she always does, like what she's good for. Anyways, it was like your grandchildren are bullying my son, our son. You know, that's what she really meant to say. I'm sorry, our son. And he was like, you sure that wasn't our Aegon that was, you know, putting them up to it? And that's exactly what it was. And it was funny to me that he said that, because like I said in the previous video, parents be knowing their kids. You know, some parents. He was like, that was definitely Aemon that put them up to that. I mean, not Aemon. That was definitely Aegon that put them up to that. And she knew it too. That's the sad part. And she didn't even want to admit it. This is like the parents who are trifling, who never needed to be parents to begin with, who the genes for reproductivity should have skipped over, but it didn't, unfortunately. And it's all of our problems now because they have these kids that they don't raise or treat right, or, you know, teach how to act right, and then they bring them to school, and then they act buck wild, and then they want to come up to this, going to be like, not my sweet little angel. You know, like that triggered me because of that. Okay. Anyways, so then she goes to Aegon, and I just skipped past that part because I'm not going to even talk about what he was doing, and I'm not going to justify it either. People were saying, oh, that's something that kids do. Hogwash. Anyways, so she was just like, she just looks at him like she's disgusted with him. And I'm like, ma'am, despite what happens, this is your son. You birthed him, remember? You raised him, or you didn't. But whatever it is, he's still yours. But she looked at him like she couldn't stand his guts. Like she was absolutely disgusted with him. Like he was like some failure of a child, you know? Like he didn't live up to some magnanimous expectations that she had. And she was like, so were you bullying your brother with them other kids? And he was like, no, it was just them. And of course she knew he was lying. And she was like, you do realize at some point in time, like, they're not going to be he and ha with you all the time. He was like, I mean, Eamon, look at his face. It's practically begging to be bullied. That's basically what his response was. And she gets down all up in his face, was like grabbing on him. And I'm like, ma'am, child abuse, borderline. And she was like, you do realize that being alive is a threat to Rhaenyra's, reign. And she was like making her eyes all big. She looked mighty crazy in that scene, I'm gonna be honest. She looked mighty crazy. If I would have been him, I would have been very scared. If even my mom, on my own mom, I would be scared. Anyways, and she was like talking about, he was like, I don't want the throne. Like she can have it. Like, and I, for some odd reason, that didn't surprise me. Is that bad? Is that bad for me to say? It didn't surprise me that he didn't want the throne, because he just seemed like the lazy type, the type where it's like, he wants to enjoy the benefits of being a prince, but not the responsibilities. So he would just forego that to the next person in line or above him, so he could just continue doing what he want to do. Like I said, it didn't surprise me. And she was like, you stupid idiot. She might as well call him a stupid fool, and was like, look, you being alive, you drawing breath is a threat. Like one day she's gonna have to do something. And he was like, I'll just like abdicate. And she just wouldn't let it go, man. And a lot of people were saying, and I saw it, how it was very similar, like a reflection of how her father was poisoning her mind against Rhaenyra. Like, honestly, this is what I have to say about that. I don't think Rhaenyra would have felt threatened by Aemon and Aegon, like all of Alicent's sons. But I feel like whenever Otto was poisoning her mind against her, saying like, oh, well, you're going to have to beg for Rhaenyra's mercy because he's going to put your sons to the sword when she gets the chance. Like, I just feel like Rhaenyra would have never stooped to that level. And if she wanted to, she would have killed them when they were babies. You know what I'm saying? She would have killed them when they were younger if she was that obsessed about keeping them out of the way. I just don't feel like she looked at them as a threat the way Otto made it seem. And I feel like he kind of, like I said, poisoned her mind against Rhaenyra. They could have had a decent friendship where they could have worked something out and things could have been normal and cordial. But because he, put his 2 cents in, it messed it up. And that she's now basically doing the same thing to her child. But anyways, like I said, she was just looking at him like she was just so disgusted. He was just like, what's your problem? Like we don't even like talk. Like, she doesn't want anything to do with me. Like, she can have the throne, But anyways, then, oh my God, that scene in the training arena, like I said, buck wild in its own way. Doggone it, he got all the princes down there, but he's showing specifically Alicent's boys more favor. And of course, and it's sad because, like I said, I'm the type of person where I'm very triggered when crimes and wrongdoings are committed against children. And I'm very adamant about, if there's something that somebody did, why are we making their children pay? What did their children have to do with this and about this? I just think that that's ridiculous. And I felt like it was very beneath Kristen to treat her sons poorly because of what she did. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had no control over that. This was before their time, Like, I just think that that's just so awful and disgusting of a person to mistreat and misuse and abuse a child because of something their parents did. And a lot of people were talking about that too, like how it was like he was a scorned lover, which I guess he was. But some people were saying, well, can you blame him for being mad? But other people were saying, no, he has no excuse for how he treated those boys, because back in the episode where he slept with Rhaenyra, so a lot of people were saying that they felt like she kind of like borderline assaulted him because there was a power imbalance. Like, she was the princess, he was the knight. He had to do what she told him to do. So at first, with that particular conversation, I thought, well, yeah, there was a power imbalance. And yes, she did kind of like put him in a bad situation, which she did. And I did feel like she really screwed him over. But then there was somebody who put it into serious perspective. And there were people that saying, well, first of all, he's a grown man. Like, well, he wasn't that much older than her. But Rhaenyra was like 18 at the time, right? First of all, she's a horny, drunk teenager, because he was very drunk, who was throwing herself at a guy that he very much had the right to say no, that he just proceeded because he wanted it too. So then I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, you're right. She was drunk. She wasn't even in her right mind at the time. So it was even more imperative for him to say no, And there were some steps that he was supposed to take that he did not take to stop it from happening. Like at any moment he could have left the room. At first I was like, well, I mean, at first, like I said, I thought, I was like, well, he had no choice. What was he gonna do? Mollywop her across the head with his helmet once he got it back? Knock her out? But he could have just been like, you know what? You can keep the helmet because we're not playing these games tonight. Good night. And he could have walked out of the room and closed the door. But he didn't. He did it with her because he wanted to. And so, but she still put him in a bad position though. So I still blame both of them. But for him to act the way that he did, I get it. She turned down his proposal. I get it. And if that was what he did, decided well, she's not going to say yes and I'm just move on with my life. But for him to grow bitter over a 10-year period and still treat her disrespectfully and treat her children disrespectfully, he's less than a man for that. I said it. Yeah, I said it. He's less than a man for that. I'm like, boy, if you don't get your bitter, overgrown behind up out of here and stop treating them kids like that, that was just not right. So then, doggone it, Aemon shoulder checks the youngest boy, Lucerys. And I'm like, really? Really? I bet you won't do it to his brother. But anyway, or your own brother. But anyways, he's talking about all right, boys, here, let me show you how to do it. Let me show you, training them. And then, doggone it, why did Harren have to show up? Why? I know that was his sons, and he was trying to be out there for him like how a father should be. But you're not really their father, remember? So you need to go home somewhere. Listen, Sir Harren Strong and his handsome self should have been on somewhere because he was making it too obvious that he was the father by just being there. Anyways, I'm like, don't he got something to do? Ain't he the night watch leader? Go watch something. Anyways, who should have been there though was they father, but I understand why he wasn't there because who would want to look at the guy who literally beat the person you were with to death? I get it. Anyways, so he was like, so this is what you teach, Cole? So you're gonna make differences between the boys? And he was like, you need to, if you're gonna show them how to fight, you need to show them how to fight. And then he gonna put Aegon against Jace. And yeah, it was kind of unfair because he was older than him and taller than him. But at the same time, when you're in combat, you're not always going to have the upper hand over your opponent. So I do believe while it was unfair, it was still a reasonable match to put. And I mean, who else was he going to put him with other than, Aemon? And then he was talking about, keep going on him, keep well on him, don't let him get up, use your height, kick him down, keep going. And I'm just like, are you trying to have him kill him? Is that what you want? Is that what you want? And, but man, Jace, he hung in there. Okay, he got kicked down. He was getting pummeled, man, but he was defending himself the best he knew how. And I was like, this baby's fighting for his life. And this psychopath over here, he gonna get what's coming to him. Anyways, so that's when Harwin interrupts and he goes like, how dare you put your hands on me? And I'm like, boy, shut up. And then his dad was like, hey, man. I'm just like, and then this is after he was talking to Sir Lionel Strong, talking about look at them. They're getting along, forming bonds, training together. This is going to be the start of something new. He was trying to have so much faith and confidence in things going better. And it just didn't. And I felt bad for him for that. And he was like, so this is what you're teaching them? To be brutal for no reason? And he was like, well, why do you take so much interest in them? And I'm like, see, you done messed up, Harwin. I told you needed to be going somewhere. He was like, some people would say you'd only have that kind of affection and attention for a cousin, brother, or a son. And when he said that, Harwin lost it. I was like, see, this is why I told you you shouldn't have been up there. He starts wailing on Kristen. Why? Tell me why it took 4 nights to get him off of Kristen. I thought that was hilarious. I don't know why. He was like, say it again. Say it again. And I was like, you done messed up. You done messed up. You know that Alicent likes him. Like, he's favored by the queen. You done messed up, Harwin. And then, doggone it, Harwin's father, Sir Lionel, is yelling at him, talking about he was like, you done screwed us all. And he was like, listen, you got your honor, and I got mine. And I feel like that was his way of saying, like, yeah, you're supposed to be the honorable man. You do this and you do that. But I had my honor, which was, if he's over here beating up his kids and disrespecting him by saying, like, there were some people that were saying he disrespected the princess, Rhaenyra, by even suggesting that those were his kids, even though everybody knew it. But he wasn't even supposed to say that, because technically that's on the side of treason. So some people were saying he could have just been like, I was defending the princess's honor because you disrespected her by saying that was my kids. And he might have been able to get away with pummeling him into the ground. But they weren't thinking about that. And boy, I tell you, Sir Lionel was like, he was the proper father, right? He was like, no, what you did reflects on all of us. You could get all our heads chopped off. And he was like, the only thing that's standing between you and the chopping block is the king turning a blind eye because of his daughter. Not because of you, because of his daughter, okay? And he was like, don't play with me, boy. He's like, I'm not stupid. I ain't got stupid written on my forehead. I might have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. He's like, everybody got eyes. Everybody see them little brown-haired boys walking around, and they know they ain't for Sir Lanner. And they've been seeing you around them. They know how to put 2 and 2 together. He was like, well, I wish my father would turn a blind eye. He's like, I have been. I'm like, you gotta admit, he's right. He's telling the truth, bro. But anyways, so then, Rhaenyra was using the secret passageway from the previous episodes to go spy. I won't say spy on them, but to see what's happening. And she's like crying because now she knows that he could be caught. I'm like, don't cry now. If you really loved them, you would have kept your legs closed. I'm sorry. Let's hand out some accountability while we're at it. If you love them so much, you'd be like, you know what? Nope, let's not do this, because if I get pregnant for you, they're gonna kill you. They're gonna find a way to end your life. Anyways, in these kind of situations, you have to know how to handle situations. You gotta know how to. If you're gonna be in this situation, which she had no other choice but to be, you have to move carefully. You can't do certain things with your supposed lover, because that comes back to bite both of y'all. Anyways, so she knows she's in trouble, and doggone it, Sir Lionel and all of his honor, which I appreciate it, man. Hey, honor on. He's one of the only people in the series with honor, true honor. Nothing greedy to gain for himself, just trying to do his job and help the king. Not that many people like that. And of course, in the Game of Thrones series, the House of the Dragon, they stay killing people like that off. So there's definitely not a good amount of people going around like that. He's trying to be the honorable man. He was like, listen, my son's piss poor actions reflect back on me, so I'm gonna need to resign my position. He's like, you ain't about to do that. You've been giving me all this good advice that I should have been taking. You gotta stay. And he was like, well, if you insist, he's like, I sure do. You better stay. And I was like, man. And then what made me mad was when Alicent was talking about what is it? What is it? Why is the reason that you can't stay anymore? Tell us. And I'm like, first of all, girl, shut up. You sound and you look dumb. He came up there to talk to the king, not to her. And she was all up in the Kool-Aid talking about yes, tell us why you can't work for the king anymore. And he just looked at her like, you would like that, wouldn't you? So you can condemn us. And I was like, yeah, she certainly will. You tell her and she will condemn you. And it just made me so angry. Like, I would have told her, I would have kicked her out. Like, if I was Viserys, I would have been like, you can leave, you're excused, because you all up in my Kool-Aid. Like, you can go over. I mean, you can go out now. He was like, I refuse to say, I can't say. And I was like, good, yeah, burst her bubble. And he was like, well, you're not leaving. I'm not letting you leave because I want you here. And I thought that was very nice of him, to do that. And I'm pretty sure he knew. Like, he wasn't stupid. He knew Lord, please, we've been looking past that. You ain't going nowhere. You about to stay here and be miserable with me. And so he was like, well, thank you, but at least just let me take my son back to Harrenhal so that, you know, he could be the Lord of Harrenhal in my stead while we get this sorted out. And he was like, all right, that's fine. So that was when she went to Laris. Like I said, she was stupid for that. She was stupid for that. Like, he'd already showed her how messy he was. You don't make allies out of the messy people. Anyways, so then they have a conversation between Rhaenyra and Sir Laenor, and he's drunk with another side piece, or a side piece in the making, talking about some. So apparently war has come back in the Stepstones. The Triarchy is back with Dorne. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna fight some pirates, and you know. And she was like, no, you're not. You stay in here, you're gonna help with our sons. And then he tried to really pull her. He really tried to pull her. Oh, I've been here all this time doing this. And she was like, yeah, you've also gotten a lot out of it. Gold. You didn't bought everything you wanted to. You didn't screwed everybody you wanted to. And I was like, oh man, she's kind of right though. She did kind of get the short end of the stick because, you know, she had to have 3 babies. And I'm still not going to go there with that. But anyways, she had to have 3 babies. Anyways, he was like, fine. Because she had commanded him. She was like, I command you to stay by my side and help me with these kids. And he was like, I guess, you know, you could tell he didn't really want to do it, but he was kind of like, fine, you know. I feel like a part of him had died those 10 years ago. He just was going along with the motions. You know, like when somebody comes to the room drunk, like, you know, there's some deep-rooted issues. Anyway, so then she goes, they have a little meeting. And I believe this was after they showed Damon and Lena. But anyways, they had a meeting. And, you know, they were talking about some things, and it was like hilarious to me. I forgot the name of the old guy. I think it was Sir Otto's, Otto Hightower's father. And they went from one issue to the issue at the Stepstones. And he was like, oh, I think the Blackwoods are going to win. And you know, the guy was like, no, sir, we're not talking about that anymore. We've moved on to the Stepstones. I just thought that was hilarious. I don't know why. And then Rhaenyra was saying, we need to do something about that. And Allison was like, well, we can't afford to do nothing about it. And she was like, well, first of all, there's one or two things we can afford. Either we can't afford to do something about it, or we can't afford to have war. War is going to be more expensive. So what we can afford more is to do something about it. And she was saying, like, it's because we didn't do something about it the last time that we're having this problem right now. And I kept saying, I said in the last video, if I'm not mistaken, it was stupid for him to not go take over the Stepstones. It was criminally stupid of him. Like, the Stepstones was apparently an area where it was like a trade route. And whoever held that area was basically holding, like, checkmate. So like I said, it was criminally stupid for Viserys to not send somebody down there, to not send his troops down there, especially like when Corlys first suggested it, because his people, his men were getting, you know, basically fed to the crabs by a madman. Like, he should have been sent somebody down there and then occupied that territory. And so now, like I said, the Triarchy came back, and with Dorne, now they got problems because unlike Dorne, they were too stupid to see the value in the Stepstones. And so Rhaenyra was like, well, we should have been sent somebody down there, but we need to go ahead and do it now, do something now, you know, because anytime somebody, and they were talking about how Daemon left the place unoccupied. Anytime you conquer a land and you leave it unoccupied, you're creating a power vacuum. And that's what they all did. Some dummies creating power vacuums. Anyways. Dummies all around. Anyways. So then they were about to adjourn, but then Rhaenyra was like, wait, I have something to say. And so he was like, okay, let's all sit. So all of the men sat back down. Somebody pointed out how Alicent never sat back down. See, I keep telling y'all, stuff like that. There's little things of disrespect that she does. It's like she got more and more comfortable with disrespecting him. And he kind of allowed it because he never put his foot down with her. She stayed standing after he said everybody sit down. She was like, she really tried to offer Alicent an olive branch. You can say what motive she had, but she should have just taken the olive branch. But she was like, listen, I know that there's some animosity between us. If I've done anything to offend you, forgive me. let's just end this by, my oldest boy marrying your daughter, and if Cyrax has another clutch of eggs, Aemon can have his first pick. I was sitting there listening to these conditions, y'all, and I said, hold on. If I would have been Alicent, I'd have been like, wait a minute. Forget the boy, girl. If you want me to say yes, you're going to have to give me one of them eggs, because are you kidding me? You gonna give me an egg from Cyrax if she lays a boy? I don't care if I wouldn't have been a Targaryen. I would have been the first non-Targaryen dragon rider. I'd be like, girl, you got to give me one of them eggs. Forget the boy. I want one of them eggs. You're going to have to give me 2 of them eggs, girl, to smooth this over. 10 years? I think 2 eggs are worth 10 years, right? And they better hatch. But anyways, that's just me being comical. She should have took that deal. She should have took that olive branch. She was like, I'll consider it. And then she was like, it was like she was just so like it's just the audacity of this woman in this episode. She was like, Rhaenyra, like, ugh, your motherhood is making me sick, and she was like, oh, and she like covers herself, and I'm like, everybody in there is adults. We all know what happens sometimes with women when they're just giving birth. The milk leaks through. Can we be mature? Anyways, and then Viserys is sitting there like, he's like smiling. He's like, this is such a great idea. A marriage between her boy and his girl. And he's all happy at the thought of it. And it was like, this was a really good, an egg, a dragon egg is a handsome gift. And he was like, we can't just consider this. And Alicent basically said over her dead body, I kept telling y'all the disrespect was just going unchecked. If I would have been Viserys, I would have been like, we can make that possible. Would you like for me to make that possible? Like right now? Because you're not going to keep acting like this. Y'all not going to keep this strife going. Like, I want to be in peace. Like, y'all not about to disrupt my peace with y'all foolishness. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, at some point in time, you got to put your foot down with women like Alicent. I'm sorry. To let her go unchecked like that with the disrespect, her walking out on him, her disrespecting him publicly, and just refusing to bury the hatchet. Like, I get it. She was upset. Like I said, I believe her main quarrel was she felt like the reason why her father got kicked out as Hand of the King was because Rhaenyra lied. Now, again, she lied by omission. Like, she never asked her, did she sleep with Sir Criston Cole? She asked her if she slept with Daemon. So some people were saying, like, I get that Alicent did not have a lot of choice what was going on, because, she just had to do her duty. Women did not have a lot of options. They didn't have choices. You did what your father said. If he told you to marry this lord or this duke or this marquis, you had to marry him. And then you had to have kids with him. It was a horrible time. Some women probably lived life and died with so much trauma because of it. Because it was a sexist and just horrible society. Although, I am not here for anybody taking out their trauma on somebody else or making it somebody else's problem or growing bitter to the point where they're just dislikable to be around. Like I said, I get it. She didn't really have a choice. And everybody loved, but let me say this. People love to talk about their duty to the king and to the realm. Well, if you know somebody is using the king, your duty to the king and to the realm is to snitch on them. And that's what she should have did to her daddy. I don't care if it was her father. Her first duty was to the king, especially when she married him. Oh my God. By the way, Viserys, my dad's using me. He wants to put Aegon on the throne. Her first duty was to tell the truth to her husband. And so some people were saying that, she lied by omission by not telling Rhaenyra that she was having secret meetings with her father, even though Viserys was like, don't tell my daughter. That still broke her heart, So she should have just called her not telling the truth about sleeping with Sir Criston Cole. She just should have called it even, and they should have buried the hatchet. This is a classic example of bitter women or a bitter woman causing problems, disrupting peace. She should have just buried the hatchet. And what made me mad too was when she said, "Oh, she's being desperate. She's desperate. Like she's not sorrowful or regretful. She's desperate." And I'm like, I don't care what the reason was. She should have taken the olive branch and she should have buried the hatchet. Like, I know a lot of people were like, well, she did this and she did that. Somebody's got to be the bigger woman, right? And she literally killed her chance to do that by turning down the proposal. It was stupid, as a matter of fact, because, again, talking about duty to the realm, to the king, to the throne, her duty to the realm would have been to bury the hatchet and not create problems or add to the fire and the strife by fighting with Rhaenyra. Marrying their children would have solved a whole lot of problems, y'all. Like, it would have solved a lot. But no, she didn't want her daughter to marry some boy with plain features. She couldn't stand Rhaenyra and her boys, so she had to keep her mess going. And that's how we're gonna keep getting House of the Dragon, because she wanted to keep her mess going. She couldn't bury the hatchet. She wanted to be a bitter heifer. Anyways, I was like, wow, she really just disrespected the king. So then we're gonna jump to Lena and whatever that man name is. They over here riding on dragons, basically putting on a show for the people of Pentos. I'm like, that was pretty cool watching them ride the dragons next to them. Especially Rhaegar, not Rhaegar, I forgot what her dragon's name was. But that was pretty cool watching them ride side by side like that. And so they're having lunch, I think with like the Prince of Pentos or something like that. And he was like, I would like to make a proposal. And Lena was like, if you wanted to marry our daughters off to one of your sons, you should have just said that. Like, he was like, and then the poor girl was like, huh? Wait a minute, what I got to do with this? And the guy was like, no. And he's like, okay, Lex, listen, there's a war has broke out in the Stepstones again. The Triarchy is back, and they're with Dorne. So why don't you help us like how your ancestor did, and you can stay here forever. We'll give you this, we'll give you that. Our home is your home. And I was like, I mean, that's kind of a decent deal, but at the same time, like, would they be making this offer if they didn't have dragons, if they weren't Targaryens, you know? She was like, that's the most generous offer. And she was so sure that Daemon would be like, nah, we good. But he was like, we'll consider it. But he seemed pretty convinced. And at first, I feel like that was probably the first time that they probably ever really disagreed on anything other than her wanting to go back home, him not wanting to go back home. So then, you know, later that night, they were talking. And, you know, she was like, listen, you don't really care for this place, so why would you want to stay here permanently? Like, this is not us. Like, you know, you're better than this. Like, you're more than this. He was like, look, we have a good life here, away from the politics, away from the bull crap and the hogwash and the just drama of, you know, thrones and bloodlines and heirs. And, you know, at first I was like, I mean, but he's got a point though. I know he must have gotten sick of that at some point in time. He must have gotten tired of it. It's tiresome. It's exhausting. You know, just watching it is exhausting. So I was like, okay, well, he does have a point there. Okay, I will give him that. And it was nice to see that, you know, it seemed like he had matured. Like, listen, like I had said in the last episode, I didn't know that he was off his wife bad, but I just did not see him becoming a mature man with, you know, a wife and kids, with a family. Like, he literally become a proper family man. Now, I don't agree. There's some people who say that, like, oh, if the guy's acting buck wild, just give him a wife and have him get some kids and that'll make him settle down. Like, no, don't put some woman and their future kids on the line and their well-being on the line just because you didn't raise your son right, or your brother or your cousin is buck wild. Like, just because he got a wife and some kids, that don't mean he gonna settle down or act right. But it actually seemed like Daemon, you know, he grew mature, you know. You know, he became a better man. And I was shooketh. It made me kind of mad because, with, you know, I don't really think the 10-year time jump was like a rush, but I wish they would have given us more scenes developing his relationship with Lena across those you know, those 10 years. And he was just getting upset with her because, you know, he was like, I guess he got mad because, you know, talking about going back to that stuff. And she had came to him, you know, honestly. And then she had made that statement, that one statement stood out to me when she was like, I know I wasn't your first choice. And he was like, Lena, really? And I don't feel like it was like like, here we go again. But I think that, I could be wrong, but I think that he did love her. Like, of course, you know, we all know he wanted Rhaenyra, but he screwed that over when he like I said in the previous video, left her high and dry, hot and ready in the brothel by herself, which was an awful thing to do. But everybody knew that he wanted Rhaenyra. And then, of course, when he screwed that over and then she ended up having to get married to Laenor, he just went to the next youngest, prettiest thing with, you know, with white hair, basically. And so of course, let me just be honest, in her position, I would have felt the same. I'd have been like, maybe you do care about me, but I know I wasn't your first choice. You know, and I think he did love her, like, despite not necessarily choosing her first, he did grow to love her, you know, and their 2 daughters. And so it was kind of sad because, like, he was teaching one of his daughters who would finally claim the dragon, High Valyrian. And I thought that scene was so cute where he was like, she came to talk to him and he was like, okay, it's time to go to bed. And he was like, give dad a kiss. And then she gave her mom a kiss. I thought that was very cute. And that was when she had talked to him about that other stuff. And so then it just jumps to her giving birth. And I was like, already? And that was not an easy birth. And they were like, you gotta push, my lady. And then the doctor was like, I'm at the limit of my medicine. I don't know what else to do other than, you know, an old school, well, there's a term that some of us like to use, but I'm not gonna say it on here because, again, I don't want to get a YouTube strike, okay? It's an old school method, or a relatively let me take it back, a very unsafe method. He was like, we can, you know, cut along the womb to free the child. And Damon was like, can she survive? And I'm like, listen, I know, like, sometimes I feel like men, whenever they're put into these roles, these like movies and shows, they have been written to be very ignorant and, like I said, tactless whenever it comes to things that women go through. I'm like, what do you think, Damien? If somebody cut you through the midsection, would you survive? Probably not. But anyways, and he was like, but can she survive? And he was like, no, the chances are trash. Like, no. And he started to, like, shake his head like, no, he didn't want to do it. But it was crazy because he got confronted with the same thing Viserys did. He was like, look, we can't get the baby out. She's probably going to die. The baby's probably going to die if we don't get the baby out. You could lose both of them. And then when they told him about the cesarean section method, he was like, she's definitely going to die. Well, he didn't say it like that, but he was like, she's definitely going to die. He might as well have. And it seemed like Damon was about to, like, shake his head like, well, if that's the case, then no, don't do it. And when I say I was holding on to my seat, like, well, I couldn't say don't be another wife killer in your family because he already killed his wife. Viserys killed his via C-section, and then he killed his via bloody vengeance with bludgeoning to the head. So I couldn't say don't be a wife killer like your brother. Because he threw that out the window when he did what he did to Lady Rhea. But I was like, bro, if you do this, and if I have to sit through this again, I'm going to be mad. And like I said, it seemed like he was shaking his head like, no, I don't want to risk that. But by that time, it was too late because she was like, forget this. She had told him that she wanted to die a dragon rider's death. And I was like, well, sis, I don't know how you gonna do that. Y'all ain't had no wars, really, unless she would have went to the stepstones. But she was determined. She wanted to die a dragon rider's death. She was like, forget this. I'm still trying to figure out how a pregnant woman who was in unimaginable pain was able to get away from her servants and walk that far out ahead of Damon. I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I guess maybe she could have ordered the servants to, like, leave her alone, but still. She walks out to her dragon, and I was like, what is she doing? I know she's not about to do what I think she's about to do. I know she's not about to unalive herself. Please, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. And then she gets down on her knees and was like, Dracarys. And I was like, she's about to unalive herself. I'm gonna cry now. And she kept saying, Dracarys, Dracarys. And her dragon was looking at her like, are you sure? Like, and some people were saying, like, I think maybe in the books, or it could have been implied that when you bond with the dragon, they sometimes feel what you feel. And if her dragon did, like, could you imagine, like, the dragon and then the dragon rider begging the dragon to put her out of her misery in a way that she wanted to go, that she was choosing to go, feeling the pain that she felt, not wanting to do it because that was her rider, but knowing that she was in so much pain, That scene was so sad. I wanted to cry. I did. I wanted to cry. I was upset for a couple of days after seeing that. And she said, she got up and she was like, and then doggone it, Damon, too little, too late. Talk about, Lena, what are you doing? Too late. She's up in flames. And I'm just like, I hate this show. Like, I literally I hate this show. I hate this show. I was so upset, y'all. I was so upset. That was a very traumatic scene and sad scene. And then he was up on the roof with the kids. And he just looked so detached, Like, it was like he was starting to go back to old, detached, selfish, I only care about my own self-interest Damon. But apparently there was some talk about a scene that was cut where he was actually hugging his daughters. And I was just like, why did y'all rob us of this? We needed to see this. We needed to see Damon, the father, who's there for his daughters and is not emotionally detached and only worried about himself and how he feels. They should have put that back in there anyways. So then, they go back to, of course, Rhaenyra's just like, at first she was like, I'm going to stay here. But she was like, you know what, forget this. And so she goes to Lena, and she was like, let's leave. Let's go to Dragonstone. We should have been there to begin with. And he was like, are you sure? She was like, look, they're undermining me. They took, I made a really good offer, and they slapped it in my face, which they really did. But she shouldn't have left, though. I don't think she should have left. But she was like, they talk about me. They spread rumors. And I'm like, girl, that's because you had 3 babies out of wedlock. That's why they talking about you. Like, I'm not trying to be the almighty judge, but it's like, it was incredibly unwise and quite stupid to not at least have 1 baby with Lena. Like, only y'all's lives and the lives of your children are at stake, and the person you're screwing. Like, they should have at least been like, listen, we gonna close our eyes, we gonna think about something else, hold our breath, whatever we gotta do. We get 1 baby together so that we can at least say we got this one, instead of having 3 babies with the same dude that's not your husband, that also makes it blatantly honest isn't children by your husband. And I get it. She has, Rhaenyra she's a rebel. She feels like, look, I don't care that I'm a woman and y'all are trying to make a difference between me and the men. This is like that one episode where Viserys was like, she had confronted him. She was like, if I was a dude, y'all wouldn't even be saying nothing about me having bastards outside of wedlock. The men do it all the time. And he was like, yeah, you're right. The men do it. But because you're a woman, they're going to hold you to a different standard. They're going to throw you under the bus. She was a rebel. She was like, listen, I'm just to do the same thing y'all let the men do. If y'all let them have, children outside of wedlock, I'm just to have some babies outside of wedlock. I'm just to sleep with who I want to sleep with. But that's just a horrible idea. I get it. You want to rebel and do what you want to do and not be confined by society. But I feel like she rebelled in the stupidest way possible. If you wanted to rebel, you should have been a little bit smarter with it than that. Like I said, I'm not supporting extramarital affairs. But if you were going to get mad because they forced you into a relationship with somebody who you didn't really love, with your cousin, and you were going to sleep around, at least don't get pregnant for the guy. Do something. If his pull-out game is not strong, he can't be your lover. I said it there. I said it. Anyways, like I said, I'm not condoning any of this, but at least do it smart, right? Anyways. So she tells Lena, let's hit the road. Let's go to Dragonstone, man. And he was like, all right. And she even tells him, yeah, bring the other guy. So then, meanwhile, I still couldn't believe this. Alicent is over here talking to Larys, and she was like, ugh, like, he's leaving, like, but she still got them 3 boys. He was like, I can arrange something. And this man goes into the dungeons and gets criminals and was like, you wanna survive, you wanna live? You gotta do something for me. Burns their tongues and then sends them to set the hotel, I guess it was a hotel, that Sir Lionel Strong and Sir Harvard Strong in on fire. When I tell you I was mad, I was pissed that they killed off Sir Harwin. And maybe it would have, some people said that it would have had more of an effect. It would have had more of like a shock value if we had like maybe like another episode or two, again, developing his relationship with Rhaenyra. We would have had a little bit more time with him, older. It would have been more of a shock, But it was still a shock for me. And I was very upset that he died like that. And that Larys would do that, because that was literally his brother and his father. Like, what kind of a psychopath are you to have your father and your brother killed? And that was another thing people were saying. Like, we felt like we missed something. Again, that they took something out, because somewhere in there he developed some kind of animosity for them. Had to have, in order to do something like that. I'm thinking maybe he didn't feel adequate enough because he had the club foot. Maybe because he didn't feel like, he was as strong as Harwin or as honorable as his father. I don't know, but I just don't understand how he could do that to his family, to the only family he had in the world. I was like, that's trash. He's disgusting. He's a disgusting human being. And then gonna go to Alice and basically brag and be like, so I can trust that you'll help me when I need it, right? And she was like, I didn't ask you to do this. Like, she had the audacity to be upset. And I still don't understand why even he had to do it. They were separated. There was no more going to be an issue with Rhaenyra seeing him unless she snuck off to Harrenhal to see him. They were separated. That was enough. But anyways, she was like, I didn't ask you to do this. And he was like, but I can trust that you'll help me. I mean, but you did ask me. You asked me to help, right? And I was like, see, this is why I'm talking about. It was stupid for her to trust him to begin with. He was waving all kind of red flags in that episode where, like I said, he kept saying, oh, I'm so glad she's fine. But she was dumb enough to enlist his help. Dummy. Anyways, I was like, see, this is what I was talking about. And she was talking about I didn't mean for this to happen and all this kind of stuff. But this is how it starts. Like, the animosity, like there are people, people don't believe this, but when you live with stuff like resentment, bitterness, animosity, that stuff like eats you from the inside. It makes you into, a horrible person, makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. And while she might not have wanted it, her actions still caused it, because she enlisted his help. Had not she even spoken to him, he wouldn't have done it. Maybe he would have on his own. I don't know. Maybe he would have, but we'll never know now, will we? But I was mad. I was mad when he died. But anyways, this episode was interesting. There were a lot of little details. Oh, and another thing at the end. Whenever Alicent had first married Viserys, it seemed like they had a really tender relationship. She was helping him. She was being nice to him. Like I said, now it's complete and total disrespect and dismissiveness. And Viserys was in the room and by himself, and he picked up the ring, his previous wife's ring, and he put it on, and he was like kissing it, and he was crying, and I was like, man, this is kind of sad, because of course I believe deep down inside he still loved her, and I feel like in times like, especially now, when Alicent was just constantly disrespecting him and throwing him under the bus, which is something we never saw, I think her name was Emma, do to him, he probably was missing her and missing her love. And I don't believe he ever really got over it. And of course, he blamed himself for what happened. Like, whenever I first saw episode 1, I hated Viserys' guts for what he did to that woman. And I get it. It wasn't necessarily so much his fault, because people were saying, oh, well, she wasn't gonna make it to the birth anyways, But I just thought that was horrible, like what he did. But like I said, it wasn't so much him, I guess. The Maesters. And somebody was theorizing that, like, it could have been the Maesters, the reason why he was, like, so sick. Like, he already had health issues, but at the rate that his health issues was going, he should have been dead before that time jump. But somebody had took note that Maester, that the previous one, he was like an older guy, he had died. And there was another Maester, that like the younger one, whenever he was like, laying, looking like he was about to die in that one episode. And that young Maester was like, we should give His Highness this. And the other Maester, the older one, he was like, nonsense, the leeches have always worked. And I'm like, but have they? Because he seems to be getting worse by the day, by the hour. And if he would have taken that young Maester's advice, he probably would have started to get better. But like I said, people were theorizing that it was probably the Maesters that were either poisoning him or making him worse. Because when that guy died, he started to kind of like level out a little bit. And so, but the question is, were they poisoning him, or was he just getting worse because of the incompetence of the Maesters? That's the question that I have. Anyways, so, and then he was like kissing the ring, and then he saw a rat in the room, and he was kind of looking like, it wasn't like another rat in the room. What's the world coming to? These things are everywhere. But it was more of like something had dawned on him. And maybe it's because, he was supposed to be the dreamer, the Targaryen in the family who was the dreamer. And I guess maybe he started to realize that the rats were a symbol of something, that there was a rat in his midst. Well, that, and another thing about the whole dreamer thing, some people were theorizing that like Alicent's daughter was getting visions, and that she had made that comment about like Aemon's gonna have to lose an eye before he gets a dragon. And it's just so, in the next episode, it so happens he gets into a fight with one of Rhaenyra's sons, and I think they accidentally cut his eye out. Spoiler alert, because it's in the trailer, so this is nothing new. And then he claims a dragon. I'm like, okay, you got your grandfather's abilities apparently. Or not your grandfather, your father's abilities. See, I'm getting confused because this family is just a hot mess. But anyways, that stuck out to me a lot. But yeah, so I was like, this is getting interesting. It's been interesting, but this is getting intense. It's already intense, but it's getting more intense. So, but yeah, so that's something I want y'all to think about. The Maesters, were they being intentional? Do you think that they were poisoning him, or do you think because of their lack of competence, they were making him get worse? And do y'all think that Sir Criston Cole is justified with how he acted? Like I said, I thought it over, and I say no. He's just being a bitter old. I'm not gonna say the word because I don't be cussing like that. He's just being a bitter, just nasty man. Like. Yes, you got turned down. It was very hurtful. But because you were rejected, you don't become bitter and take it out on other people, right? I just don't understand people like that. Anyways, this like I said, this episode, it was buck wild in its own way. I was not ready for that Lena death, and I was not ready for Sir Harwin and Sir Lionel. That made me want to cry 3 times. 3 times I wanted to cry in this one episode because of that. I still want to cry a little bit. But anyways, especially with the little babies, especially with her daughter, the one who hadn't had a dragon. She had a dragon and she was like warming it by the fire and singing to it. I thought that was so adorable. And she was so sad because she was the only one without a dragon. And like, I felt like Lena was the only one picking up the emotional slack with that one. And she was like, oh, don't worry, your father's not ignoring you. He's just trying his best. Don't worry. And now they're without a mother. I'm just like, this is terrible. This is terrible. Anyways, y'all tell me how y'all felt and what y'all thought down in the comments below.